Well, you picked a great Sunday to be here. We're starting a brand new series called Let Him Before You Let Them. And for some of you, you're kind of like, that just sounds like word salad, doesn't mean anything. Some of you, you maybe heard of the book Let Them, and it kind of, that sounds familiar. And I'll be honest with you, I stole it. I stole the idea from a book called Let Them, written by Mel Robbins, and it's a book that is designed to help people manage life. It's kind of, in certain circles anyway, it's become very popular, and it tries to address the things that we all struggle with. What am I responsible for? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to respond to the people around me? All those kinds of things. And I'll be honest with you, I read the book because I thought, well, if I'm going to steal the idea, I should at least be familiar with the book. And this is just my opinion. You can, form your own. And as I read the book, I thought, okay, there's some stuff in here it's true. This is true. This is wise and helpful. And then there was some other stuff in there that I felt like, this is kind of pop psychology. I don't know if it really, connects or not. And then there was some stuff in there that, again, this is my opinion. I felt like that's just bad advice. That's not really true. That's not going to be very, very helpful. But the reason the book became so popular, and the reason it seems like so many people are attracted to it, is because it addresses the things that so many folks are struggling with today. For so many of us, the idea of where is my life going? And what is it actually supposed to be about? Yes, I can get a job. Yes, I can go to school. Yes, I can have kids. Yes, I can do all those things. But what is my life actually supposed to be doing? And it kind of taps into that. It taps into the habit that a lot of us have of overthinking everything. Like, okay, why am I constantly questioning everything? Why did she say that? Why did he do that? What did that mean? Why am I thinking through everything and almost afraid to make a decision? It speaks to that as well. And it even speaks into the thing that for many of us, and we would say, oh, well, that's not a problem for me. But the truth is, it is a problem for all of us. We kind of tend to look around and see what everybody else is doing and wonder, should I be doing that too? Or am I missing something if I don't do that? Or if I don't have that? If I don't go there like they do? Does that mean that I'm less than? And it speaks into all of those things. But what it's really addressing at the end of the day is all of our desires to feel like we have some control, that we have some control over our life, over our situation, over what's happening around us. And the book taps into that in a really interesting and powerful way. And I think that's why so many people have kind of been drawn to it. This idea of control is actually really, really powerful. It's hardwired into us. There's something about us that we can't get away from it. We don't want to be the quote-unquote controlling person because we think of that as negative. But at the end of the day, we would very much like to be in control, right? We want to be in control of our family and our job and our finances and our health and our world. We want to feel like we have control of those things. Problem is, and you know this, we don't. I mean, we do until we don't. We feel like we do. And sometimes that's really helpful. Where it gets to be maybe the most damaging, though, is when we try to control other people because they don't like it, right? They don't like it. Just like you don't like to be controlled, other people don't like to be controlled. And people should be, they absolutely should be, the biggest source of joy and love and fulfillment in our lives. But if we're spending our time trying to control them, we miss out on all of that. And so over the next several weeks, the phrase, let him, is going to come up a lot. We're going to talk about this a lot, and what does that actually mean? And really kind of the short summary version of it is very, very simple. When it comes to life, what should I be responsible for, and what should I leave to God? What should God be in control of, and what should I be in control of? What kind of things do I have the responsibility to carry, and what does God carry? Because like I said, the default for most of us is to try to shift into overdrive and get control of the situations and the relationships and the people and the stuff that's orbiting around us. The problem, I guess if you really want to put a fine point on it, is all of the stress you've ever experienced in your life, all of the frustration that you have ever encountered, it comes from two things. It really does. You can boil it all down to two things. The reason you feel stress and the reason you feel frustration is one, because you are responsible for something that you can't do. That's when you start to feel stressed and frustrated. I feel responsible for this, but I can't do anything about it. Or I want to do something, but I don't know how to do it. So I'm frustrated and stressed out about that. And if you think of those terms, you think in those terms, all of a sudden it's like, well, no wonder when I try to control situations and people and stuff, I feel stressed out and I feel frustrated because I'm doing something I'm not responsible to do and I'm doing something I don't know how to do. I can't control other people. But that's you guys. I can control other people. I absolutely can. As a matter of fact, one of my superpowers is I can make people feel something. I can make people feel things from a distance. I mean, for those of you in this room, those of you that are online with us, I can make you feel something. I can absolutely do it. As a matter of fact, you don't know this. I've been doing it since you got here. I have been forcing my will on you to make you feel something. And I'm going to unveil it here in just a moment, all right? All right? So you are feeling. Can you feel it? Feel it coming? You're feeling skeptical. Yeah, no, I can't control people's feelings. I can control their thoughts, though. I absolutely can control your thoughts. On the count of 3, I want you to think about a red hammer. 1, 2, 3, red hammer. As silly and stupid as those little jokes and tricks are, that's what it looks like when we try to control people. When we try to control situations that aren't ours to control. It's a cheap trick. It's a bad joke. It doesn't work. And we are certainly not the first ones to ever feel a little bit of frustration, a little bit of uncertainty when it comes to God, what is your part? And God, what is my part? And how does any of this work? If you have a Bible, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 16. And just to give you a little context of what happened before what we're going to look at happens. Jesus and his closest followers, his closest disciples, had been working hard. They had come off a hard season of work, a very emotionally and spiritually draining season, a physically tiring season. And Jesus, ever the great leader, pulls them aside and he goes, you know what? We're going to kind of shut down for a little bit. We need a break. We need a rest. And so he takes them to a quiet place away from the crowds, away from the noise, to let everything just kind of simmer down a little bit. And as they're there, and I don't know if this is how it happened, but in my mind, this is how it happened. They're sitting around maybe a campfire or just kind of relaxing out on a hillside. And Jesus asks them a question. He says, hey, guys, I got a question for you. Who do people say that I am? What are you hearing? What are people saying about me? And they're like, well, you know, some think you're a prophet, and some think you're, you know, like Elijah, and some think you're, you know, just this famous miracle worker. I mean, lots of different opinions out there. Okay. And then he asks his real question. Who do you think I am? That's what everybody else says. What do you say? Who do you think I am? And Peter, kind of ambitious one and kind of rambunctious one, he jumps right up and he says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And that was a big statement. And Jesus was so impressed with it. He said, Peter, you're right. He goes, as a matter of fact, that is such a good answer. I know that didn't just come from you. My Father gave you that answer. And he says, and not only are you right that that's who I am, I'm going to build my entire church on this idea that I am the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And then he says something strange. He adds on to the end of that. He goes, and by the way, we're heading to Jerusalem. And when I get there, I want to give you a heads up on what's going to happen, guys. We're going to get to Jerusalem, me, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be tortured. I'm going to be executed on a cross. I'm going to be buried. And 3 days later, I'm going to rise from the dead. It's like, wait a minute. We weren't talking about any of that. That's not what we expected to hear. That's not something we would want you to say. And Peter, always the rambunctious, impetuous one, he kind of sits up or stands up and he's like, no, that's not going to happen. He goes, we're not going to have that. We can't allow it. Not under this administration. You know, we're not doing that. And Jesus says, Peter, that's such a terrible answer. I know that didn't even come from you. That came from my enemy. He goes, Peter, you are trying to control things that are not yours to control. And before we look at what Jesus says next, I got a serious question. It's a little bit painful maybe. Have you ever done that? I have. If you're a follower of Jesus, have you ever had that moment where you go to Jesus and you ask him, Jesus, I need your help with this, I need this, I want that, and would you help me here, and would you do this, and would you do that, and could you work this out, and I need you to intervene, and I want your help, and you're good to go, you're happy to follow, you're happy to walk with him until the situation changes, and then you kind of say, well, maybe I better take that back now. Maybe I better maybe I'm going to do this a little differently because I don't like the way things are going. I don't like that. I'm not sure I'm willing to do that. I don't want to give that up. I don't want to have that conversation. So I'm going to kind of take control back now and do it my way. And we all have. We've all done exactly what Peter did. And even if you're not a follower of Jesus, you've probably had some encounter with God somewhere along the line. where you kind of, maybe you made a promise to God, or maybe you asked God to bail you out, or God just kind of showed up and shined into your life for a moment and you realized who he was and you're like, man, things are going to be different now and I'm going to live different and I can't believe this. And eventually, somewhere along the way, you kind of just went back to doing what you were doing. You kind of grabbed control back again. We have all done that. And that's why what Jesus is about to say is so important for us to hear. Because he is telling us what to do and how to manage this situation, this tension, where it always feels like nobody's in control, but I need to be in control, but I don't like what other people are doing, and I'm not sure how to respond to it, and I want to control the situation. How do you live in that tension? Because it's one we all face. He talks about it in Matthew 16, verse 24. So they've just had this big conversation. And Jesus recognizes that Peter is struggling with some control issues. He says they need to hear this. Matthew 16, verse 24. Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man," that's Jesus, the way he referred to himself, "is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and he will reward each person according to what they have done." So if I could summarize, Jesus is talking about a lot of things, but one of the things he's definitely addressing is this idea of control, and he's saying something that you need to hear this morning. There is a cost that comes with trying to control the things that are not for you to control. And he says the cost of control is your soul, which is terrifying, especially to me. And you may not be like this, but I have for most of my life been a fixer. Like I like to fix cars. I like to fix wood furniture. I like to fix people. I'm a fixer. I love to fix things. And so anytime something is wrong, I feel this compelling urge and this burden to rush in and fix it. If a relationship is messed up, if the finances are messed up, if somebody's health is messed up, I want to run in and I want to fix it. I want to control it. I want to make things better. I want to get things the way they're supposed to be, which is always defined by me. I want to get in there and figure out how to fix this. And Jesus comes along and says, the cost of control, and in my case, the cost of trying to fix everything, is your soul. That's a heavy, heavy price. And we're gonna talk through this for a second, because you can't just make a statement like that and not unpack it. But maybe you're a fixer too, which is usually a nice way of saying a controller. And it's a little bit of what I alluded to earlier. There's something in us that we want to control, and we especially want to control relationships, and we especially want to control other people, but yet there's something in us that completely stiffens when somebody tries to control us. It's this bizarre, ironic thing that's going on inside of all of us. Why is it that we are so compelled to control when we don't want to be controlled at all? It's because control gives us something. Or at least we feel like it gives us something. Control gives us the illusion of safety. Like, if I can fix everything, if I can control everything, then I will feel good. Then I will feel protected. Then I will feel like, even though the world out there is crazy, all my stuff, I've got in order. I've got a handle on it. I am safe. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. I got a statement that I use all the time, and my wife's tired of hearing it because I say it all the time. But every time we see something strange, like if you go to Walmart and see how people are dressed, like every time you see something that you're kind of like, huh? I always say, that's people, and they're out there peopling, right? That people are out there peopling. That they're going to make decisions that we don't like. They're going to do things we don't understand. They're going to do things actually that are insulting or offensive to me. They're going to do things that are just plain old bad decisions. People are out there peopling. And there is no way to stop it, and there is nothing you can do about it. Where it gets hard is when the people are the people that we know, the people that we love, the people in our family, the people that are making bad decisions that anybody would say is a bad decision. People that are doing things, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, that are actually causing us a lot of hurt. And everything in us wants to jump in and try to get control of that. Everything in us wants to go in and manage it or fix it or control it. We want to feel safe. We want to feel secure again. And we think that somehow getting control is going to kind of tamp down our fears and anxiety. But the reality is the attempt to control amplifies your fears and your anxieties. I mean, Jesus made a big statement about what happens when you try to control situations and people. And I kind of summarized it, and it's a list, so we're going to go through it here for just a moment. But when you try to control people, it does cost you your soul. Because it does a few things. It ruins relationships. Like, nobody likes to be controlled, and when they realize that you are trying to control them, it ruins your relationship. It requires you to compete against other people, because there's other people out there that are trying to control things too, and now I got to compete with them, and now I got to best them, and I got to get more influence, and I got to get more access to this person. It roots you in greed, because you have this mindset now that things are very scarce, and I have to control and have a handle on and be in charge of, and I've got to have it for me, and it resists and it insists on apologies. I will not apologize, because then I won't be in control anymore. But I'm going to insist that other people apologize to me, because I have been offended, because I have been mistaken. I have had somebody take advantage of me, and they must apologize, because that's part of the control thing, and it ruins your peace. So when Jesus says the cost of control is your soul, and you look at that list, it's really hard to argue with him. It does cost a lot. If I'm losing relationships, if I'm having to compete against everybody, if I'm becoming greedy because of this scarcity mentality, if I'm impossible to be around when it comes to apologies, if I'm ruining my own peace and everybody else's peace, that is expensive, isn't it? That is not something that we want to pay for. The cost of control is your soul. And Jesus comes along and he offers something so much better. He says there is a way to live life. There is a way to get to a place and an understanding where you begin to get a hold of a simple fact. Your life is not based in what you can control. Your life is based in your connection with God. Your connection with God. It's allowing the one who is in control to actually be in control. And not try to take the job from him, and not try to grab the steering wheel, and not try to make all the decisions, but to relax and realize there is a God who loves me, and my connection to him will determine the quality of my life, not what I feel like I can control or can't control. We're going to, again, talk about this over the next several weeks, but it's a really simple idea that letting him lead meets your needs. When you let him lead, you find that it meets the needs that you have. Those needs that you've been trying to meet by getting control, by fighting through the tension and creating all the stress, all of the sideways energy that you have been expending trying to meet your needs, he meets them for you. But it's hard to remember. It really is. And honestly, that's one of the reasons. There's many reasons we gather to worship. That's one of the reasons we gather to worship every Sunday. Because you need, and I need, and together we need to have an encounter with God and be reminded that he is the King of the universe, that he is the holy creator, that he is above all and over all and in all things, that in Christ everything changes. And when I get down and worship him, it reminds me, I don't have to be in control. There is one who is in control. And I don't have to do it. I don't have to manage it. I don't have to spend, like I said, all of this sideways energy that costs me my soul and ruins my life. If I will let him lead, he will meet my needs. And it's transformative. It absolutely changes your life. Your relationships, all those things we just mentioned, your relationships, they improve. Your peace level goes up. Instead of being a person that's rooted in greed and scarcity, you start to live with an abundance. Everything changes when you're able to let God manage the pieces that God manages, and you manage the pieces that you manage. And I had to be honest with you, Jesus, he talked about it. He said it's pretty simple. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. And it does sound very churchy. Like, something you'd expect to hear at church. And for those of you that are followers of Jesus, you've probably heard this before. I doubt this is new. And as you hear it and as you think about it, it kind of resonates with you and it sounds good. Like there's a part of this that sounds really, really good, especially if you're stressed out right now, and especially if you don't have a lot of peace in your soul right now. Yeah, I'm gonna deny myself. I'm gonna follow Jesus. Everything's gonna be better. It's kind of this philosophy of life, and it's gonna be great. But how do you do that? You see, Jesus, who loves you too much to leave you out there wondering, breaks this down for us. And so I want to take just a few minutes and look at each one of those ideas because they're so powerful. That if those three things, very simple things, become part of your regular routine, this whole idea of control and stress and frustration changes dramatically. It doesn't mean you will never have a moment of stress or another moment of frustration. It just means there's clarity on what God does and what I do, what God controls and what I can let go of. And the first thing he says, deny myself, is really, I'm going to renounce my rights. I'm going to renounce my rights. I am giving up the right to be in charge of me. And it really does make a lot of sense if you look at who Jesus is. That if he is willing to come for me and live for me, and he is willing to die for me on a cross, I mean, I can trust him. I can renounce my rights to being in charge. Most of us have lived all of our life thinking that whatever we can get control of, whatever finances we have, whatever influence we can muster, that's how we win. And Jesus comes along and he goes, no, you actually win by giving that stuff up. Just let it go. It doesn't mean you won't have any influence. It doesn't mean you won't have any wealth. It doesn't mean you won't have any power or ability. It just means you just let it go. You hold it loosely. You let me handle it. Renounce your rights to that. I like to think of it this way. I have to resign from the position of being the CEO of me. I can't be the CEO of me anymore. I'm going to renounce my rights, and I'm going to let Jesus be in charge of me. So I'm going to renounce my rights. Second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to release my agenda. Release my agenda. I don't know about you. I'm a planner. I love to have a plan. I love to have a system. And as scary and weird as it is, if you put me like 45 days ahead of today and ask me, what are you doing on, whatever that is, February, 18th, I can tell you. I can tell you. It's on my calendar. And so unless something really strange happens, I'll tell you exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to release my agenda. Not just for today, not just for this week, not just for 2026, for the rest of my life. Jesus actually calls you to something incredibly, incredibly powerful and incredibly difficult at the same time. You see, when he said, pick up your cross, his disciples heard one thing, you hear something else. Most of what we hear when we hear something, I'm carrying a cross or I'm picking up my cross, you know what we hear? I'm kind of working through some hard things. I'm kind of carrying something heavy. I'm sacrificing a little bit. I'm kind of bearing my cross. This is hard. That's not what they thought. As soon as he said that, every one of them went to the last time they had seen somebody carry a cross. Because the last time they saw somebody carry a cross, and I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it was somebody that had been beaten and abused. It was carrying a big wooden cross through a street out to the end of town so that they could be stretched out on it, left on a pole to die an incredibly painful death over the next several days. When he said, carry your cross, that's what they thought of. They didn't think of an inconvenience. What they heard was, I want you to live for me, and I want you to be willing to die for me. With no apology, with no backing up, with no hint of embarrassment, Jesus says, that's what I'm calling you to. I'm calling you to live for me and die for me if necessary. And that's a big ask. I mean, who can make that kind of ask? Well, at the very least, maybe somebody who's willing to do the same for you. Jesus says, look, I will live for you. I came for you. I will die for you. I will die in your place. And I am calling you to make that same kind of commitment to me. We talked earlier about why this book, Let Them, gets really popular. And some of it is because so many people are trying to figure out, what's really behind life. I don't really have any passion or purpose. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going through the motions. And Jesus comes along and he goes, I'm giving you an opportunity to live a life that is not only worth living for, is worth dying for. Now, most of the time, Jesus does not ask us to die for him. But he does ask us for that level of commitment. And how that translates, this idea of releasing my agenda, how that translates, and I know for some this is going to sound a little uncomfortable, a little demanding. But what that can mean is that sometimes I turn down the promotion. Sometimes I don't sign my kid up for that club team. Sometimes I delete that app off my phone. If those things are going to keep me from following Jesus well. Because he came for me and he died for me. And he has called me to have that same kind of commitment to him. So it's no longer me that gets to set the agenda. He does. He sets the agenda. I renounce my rights. I've released the agenda. And the last thing, he says, follow me. I'm going to reset my day. I'm going to reset my day. This is an everyday thing because, again, if you're like me, there's going to be some days that you do a really good job. You do a really good job of renouncing your rights. And you do an okay job at releasing your agenda. Or some days maybe you don't release your rights at all and you living on your own agenda. Or maybe you got the agenda part down, but you kind of insisted on a lot of things for yourself. And you have to start over every day. You have to start over every single day. Because you're going to be driven and have this compulsion to try to be in control again the next day. And Jesus says you need to reset your day and follow me. So you start the day with this simple idea. Today, I'm going to follow Jesus. I don't have to control everything. I don't have to control them. I don't have to control the situation. I also don't have to be stressed out. I also don't have to lose my soul in the process. I'm going to follow him. I love, and I don't know if you've seen it or not. There's a series out called The Chosen, and it's about Jesus, and it's actually really well done. And I don't even remember what season it is, probably season 3 or 4 in this show. There's this follower of Jesus. His name was Matthew, and he portrays Matthew the disciple. And his friend comes up to him, and he's asking him some questions as Matthew's been following Jesus. And he says, isn't this confusing sometimes? Because this Jesus person that you're following, he does things that people don't understand, that nobody's ever seen people do before. He says things that are really kind of controversial and confusing even at times. And he even has you do stuff that doesn't even make any sense. And he goes, Matthew, isn't this confusing? He has a great answer. He says, yeah, sometimes following Jesus is confusing. But then I remember all I have to do today is follow Jesus. That's it. That's all I have to do today. Is follow Jesus. I don't have to figure everything out. I don't have to fix my son or daughter. I don't have to have the answer to how our marriage gets healthy again. I don't have to do all those things today. All I have to do today is to follow Jesus. If I do that, if I allow him to be in control, if I allow him to lead, if I allow him to set the pace and create the agenda, everything changes. It's a different kind of life. It's a very simple idea. Losing control actually restores my soul. Fighting for control cost me my soul, but losing control, that's what restores my soul. I don't think I have to argue too much about this with you. I mean, we've all experienced this. We've all lived this. We know what it's like. We've felt it. We've lived it every day. How fresh, how different. To live not obsessed about what's going on around me, but simply focused on following the one who loves me. We're going to talk, like I said, throughout this whole series about the very simple idea of let him before you let them. And as we do, and as we kind of get into it, we're going to talk about some of the toughest moments of life. When people walk away, when relationships break down, when people are making decisions that you don't agree with, how to actually live and enjoy God's approval instead of living for the approval of other people, and how to find true peace. We're going to hit on all of those things over the next several weeks. I really hope you're going to be part of it. But today you need to respond. Don't wait till 3 weeks into the series. For those of you that are followers of Jesus, it's really actually simple. And I had to filter through these questions myself. Have you been renouncing your rights? Or has there been something you're holding on to? Something you don't want to let go of? That you feel like you're entitled to? But you can't seem to surrender it to him? Have you had the courage to release your agenda, that life plan of how it was supposed to go, and either continuing to strain against it or living in the bitterness because it didn't happen? Have you been able to release your agenda? And finally, very simply, are you following him? Have you reset your day? Is that your normal practice? That I'm going to reset my day. I'm going to start every day following him. I mean, we encouraged you last week. We sent out a 90-day New Testament reading plan. I hope you got started. Even if you didn't, you can start today. Reset your day. Start with following him. For those of you that aren't yet followers of Jesus, I don't know if you know this. The process for becoming a follower of Jesus is the same process for every person that's ever been. And it's just what Jesus laid out. It's that simple idea of you know what? I'm going to renounce my rights. Jesus, I'm going to let you lead. I'm going to give up my agenda. Jesus, I'm going to let you be the Lord of my life. I'm going to follow you. As a matter of fact, the Bible says, it's just so clear. How do I become a follower of Jesus? How do I enter into this life? If you believe in your heart that Christ died in your place and was raised from the dead, and if you're willing to say with your mouth that he is your Lord, your leader, he's in charge, he's in control, you will be saved. So that's what we're going to do together as a church. Over the next several weeks, we're going to explore this together. We're going to walk through this together because nobody's going to get it right every time. But we are going to continually look for how do we renounce our rights? How do we release our agenda? And how do we start to reset our days so that every day is a day spent following Jesus and allowing him to be in control? Would you pray with me for just a moment? Father, thank you for these incredible words. And at the same time, Father, I feel a sense of embarrassment, a sense of disappointment in myself. Because you've made it so clear, and so many times I've reached back, tried to take it, tried to carry what's not mine, tried to control people and situations that aren't mine to control. And it's chipped away at my soul. It's ruined some of my relationships. It's made me more used to living in fear and anxiety than in faith and confidence. And so Jesus, even if it's just me, I confess, and maybe there's others that would confess this morning that there's been a struggle. It's not easy. We don't always understand. I thank you that you come to us with such clarity and such love, that you invite us into peace. You invite us into life with a healthy soul. And you invite us one more time to follow you again, fresh and new. Jesus, that's my prayer for everyone in this room, whether today is day one of following you or they've been at it for years. Lord Jesus, we want to follow you. We trust you to be in control. Would you make our souls healthy and send us out to share the secret of what real life looks like? We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's continue to worship.